In this video, we are going to go through on PSLE 2014 Mathematics Paper 1, both Booklet A and Booklet B. So if you want to get a free PSLE 10-year series, you can go to easy1.sg/PSLE. So let's get started on the first question. All right, question 1, round off 70.171 to the nearest tenth. Okay, so we have over here 70.171. So what digit number is in the 10th place? So if your answer is 0.1, then you're right. So with that said, 0.07 is in the 100th place. So to round off, we need to see whether the digit before 1 is more than 5. So in this case, the 100th place decimal or digit is more than 5. So then that's where we round up, and the number 1, and this will give us from 70.171 to 70.2. There you go. So the answer is option C or option number 3. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question number 2. Which one of the following is most likely the length of a bed for an adult? Okay, so in this case over here, we want to know, you probably know what's your height. Okay, so your height ranges from maybe 1.5 meters or maybe 1.3 meters to 1.7 or even 8 meters. Okay, so this is your typical height over here. So that means an adult is taller than you. So that means it's close to, right? It's close to 1.7 meters, which is in this sense, which is closer 2 meters or 20 meters. So the answer to this question should be 2 meters, not 20 meters, huh? Right? So your parents might be this height, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe little bit taller or around this height. But 20 meters is basically 10 times the height of your parents, whether it's your father or your mother. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question number 3. In the figure, PQRS is a rectangle. Angle PQT is equal to 15 degrees and SQR is 40 degrees. That's what you see over here. Find TQS. So I think it's pretty straightforward for this. Since this is a rectangle, that means this whole angle over here is what you see. Okay, it's, what do you think? Right? So obviously 90 degrees because this whole figure over here is a rectangle. So from here, we can just have 90. So it's simply as 90 minus 40 minus 15. Right, so 90 minus 40 is 15. 50 minus 15, this will give us 35 degrees. There you go. So that's the answer for question number 3. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 4. Raja paid $5 for a box of 20 pencils. What was the cost of each pencil? So in this case, also pretty straightforward. So since 20 pencils is equal to $5, which is also equal to 500 cents, right? So if we go to one pencil, right? So remember, $1 is equal to 1 times 100, which is equal to 100 cents. That's what you see over here. Okay, so that means one pencil is equal to 500 divided by 20. So we can cancel out the zeros over here, which will be 50, right, divided by 2, which is equal to 25 cents. Okay, there you go. So that's the answer for this question, 25 cents. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 5. The pie chart shows how Joel spent the money his mother gave him. What fraction of the money did he spend on books? Okay, so over here, we actually can do pretty straightforward. So, first thing first is we need to know how much he spent on books. So, books over here is $12. And then we also need to get the total, which in this case is 12 plus 8. Oops, 8 plus 10 is equal to 12 plus 8 is 20 plus 10 is equal to 30. Okay, so now what's the fraction? So, fraction on books is equal to 12 over 30. So, what is the common multiple for 12 and 30? So if you say divide by 6, then you're right. So then this will become 2 over. So 12 divided by, so if I were to just put it like this, right? So 12, then we will just divide this by 6. Okay, oops. Divide by 6 like this. And then we can, oops. And then we can do the same as this over here. Okay, so this will be 30 divided by 6. So what do you think the answer is? So 12 divided by 6 is 2 and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So there you go. The answer is 2 over 5. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 6. What is the value of 21W over 10 minus W plus 1 when W is equal to 2? Okay, so in this case, we have 21W over 10, right, as a fraction minus W plus 1, right? Okay, so for this, we want to know, that means for W, 21W over 10 is basically is a divide. Okay, and then minus W plus 1. Okay, so now we can just substitute the W with 2. So this will be 21 times 2 divided by 10 minus 2 plus 1. Okay, so first we need to, if you remember the order of operations, we need to go from left to right. And whether it's times or divide, we need to go from the first left. So in this case, 21 times 2 is 42 divided by 10 minus 2 plus 1. Okay, 42 divided by 10 is 4.2 minus 2 plus 1. Okay, and from here you can just continue. So 4.2 minus 2 is 2.1 plus 1, and this will be 3.2. There you go. So that's the answer for this question, 3.2. Next question. 3 containers with some water are shown below. Which container has the most water and which container has the least? So we need to look carefully into what is the amount of water in each, in this case, container. So for A over here, let's zoom in a little bit more. We see that we have, in this case, gaps, right? So one gap, right? Oops. And then we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for A over here, right, container A, where we have the gaps, so 5 gaps is equal to 100 milliliters. I'm just going to put like this. Okay, 5 gaps equal to 100. So 1 gap is equal to 100 divided by 5. This will give us 20. So for A over here, we know that 1 gap is 20. So you go for the next one, 1 gap, 2 gap, and 3 gap. So for container A, so container A is equal to 100 plus 3 gaps times 20, and this will give 160 ml. Okay, let's move on to B. So B over here, we have a bunch of gaps as well. So one, oops. So let me just log this first. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for container B, okay, for container B, we have 4 gaps. So I'm going to put here container B, 4 gaps. And how many milliliters is 4 gaps? 200. So one gap is equal to 200 divided by 4, which is equal to 50. And then for B as well, we need to know how many gaps. So it's 1, 2, and 3. So 3 gaps is equal to 50, oops, times 3 is 150. Okay, so for container B is 150. Okay, then we go for the last one. Oops, sorry. Let's go for the last one over here, right? Okay. Okay, so for container C, we have a couple as what we see over here. So 0.5 liters. Let's change this. 0.5 liters. Okay. So for container C, 0.5 liters is equal to 0.5, right? Times 1000 because 1 liter is 1000 milliliters. So 0.5 times 1000 is 500 ml. Okay, so now let's calculate the gaps. All right, for this one, you can actually kind of skip this because this is considered like half lah, right? So if you don't want to skip, then that's fine. So let's do the non-skip way. So we have 1 gap, 2 gap, 3 gap, 4 gap, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 gaps. Okay, so in this case, let me just remove all of this. All right, so for container C, it's 10 gaps. That is equal to 500 milliliters. Okay, so then we have 1 gap, which is equal to 500 divided by 10 is equal to 50. Okay, so how many gaps do we have for container C? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So with 4 gaps, this will be 4 times 50 equal to 200 milliliters. Okay, so now we know all of the different, what do you call this? Container, what do you call this? Container amount. So you have 200 ml for container C. Then for container B, it's 150. So I'm going to put here 150. Oops, again. Okay, 150. And lastly, for container A is 160. All right, so which option will be the correct one? So option number A is, so which one is the most? Is option number C. So you have D and C for the options that might be correct. Which one has the least? B or A? B. So the answer is option number D or the fourth option as what you see over here. All right, there you go. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 8. So Mariam had $4 Y. After buying some cloth at $7 per meter, she had Y dollars left. How many meters of cloth did she buy? So over here, you need to use algebra. So Mariam had $4 Y. So at first, she has dollars for Y. So now, after buying some clothes at $7 per meter, she had Y dollars left. So that means the cloth, right, will be equal to, right? So we know that she has left, right, dollars 1Y or just Y. Okay. So the cost of the cloth is equal to how much she had at first minus how much she have left, which in this case is 4Y minus Y, which is 3Y. Okay, so the cloth cost 3Y. So since we know the cloth costs 3Y, so we want to know the cloth length. How we do that is we get the cloth, right? Cloth cost over here. So I'm just gonna put this here, right? Cloth cost, and then we divide it by $7. Okay. So because the cloth cost is equal to cloth length, right? This is a rate times dollars 7. So if you were to reverse it, it will look something like this, right? Okay, so from here we can just find out for the cloth cost, how much does it cost? It costs around 3y divided by 7. Okay, and with this, it's basically just 3y over 7. Okay, and the answer to this is option number 1, or option A in this case over here. All right, that's it. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 9. Which one of the following fractions is larger than 1/3? All right, so in this case over here, we'll see that we need to, in a way, find out in terms of the fractions which one is larger than 1/3. Okay, so I think for 7 out of 21, it's equal to 1/3 lah. Okay, because we just divide 7 and 21 by 3, and you will get what do you call this? So you divide 7 by 3, sorry, 7, and then same thing with 21, you just divide this as well, right? Okay, so 21 you divide it by 7 and you get 1 out of 3. Okay, so what about 6 out of 17? Okay, 6 out of 17, right? So in this case over here, we can, in a way, do. Okay, so I've drawn out a visual representation of how this looks like. So the thing is that I've drawn out, you call it a line over here, where it's 1/3. So out of the other three fractions in the options, which one do you think is larger or longer than 1/3? So the answer is 6 out of 17. The reason is because if we were to have, like, for example, 6 out of 17, so that means, right, we have 6 as a numerator and the total is 17. So if we were to multiply 6, okay, oops. So if we were to multiply, for example, right, the theory is you have 6 times 3, it becomes 18. And in this case, 18 is bigger than 17, right? So let's do the same with the rest. We have 4 out of 13, which is then we just multiply by 3. So 4 times 3 equal to 12. So if we compare this to 13, 12 is smaller than 13. Okay. So lastly, let's go to 3 out of 11. If we have multiplied by 3 again, then this will give us 9. And 9 is smaller than 11. So now we know from this simple, I would say, exercise, you know that 6 out of 17 is more than 1/3. Because 1/3 is essentially just a multiplication of 3. If you were to visually draw it, I think it's pretty obvious as what you see over here. So for example, if I were to put, maybe instead of 3 out of 11, you put 4 out of 11 in this case over here. Then if we change here to 4 out of 11, instead of 3, we will have 4 times 3, and this will give us 12. And 12 is bigger than 11, right? So this is something to, understand a little bit on how to do this kind of comparison kind of question. A bit tricky, but if you understand the logic behind it, it's actually pretty straightforward. All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, question number 10. Willie wanted to pack 60 apples and 75 pears into as many bags as possible with no remainder. She packed the same number of fruit in each bag. Number of apples in each bag was the same. How many apples were there in each bag? So the thing is that reading this might be a little bit confusing, but basically we just want to have apples, right? 60 apples plus 75 pears, okay? And then this will be equal to 135, right? Fruits. And 135 fruits, right, must be into as many bags as possible. And each bag itself has the same number of apples. Okay, the thing is that from here, if we know that there's each bag have same number of apples, right? That means each bag also have the same number of pears, right? So from here, what we can do is we don't even have to add them or know how to get this. We actually can just do a simple ratio. So with that said, we can just have, for example, apples, okay, right? And then we have pears, and we can just have 60 to 75. So in this case over here, if we were to just simplify apples to pears, we actually can get how many fruits per bag. So for this, you can divide it by, so what's the common multiple for 16 and 75? Is actually just 15. Okay, so we just divide this by 15, right? In this case over here, divide by 15. And what will this give us? This will give us 4 is to 5. So that means in each bag over here, each bag has 4 apples and 5 pears, right? So in this case, how many apples were there in each bag? The answer is 4. There you go. That's the answer. So I would say this question, it's only difficult if you don't understand what they are trying to say. And also it's a really tricky question. But all right. So hopefully when you see this kind of question in the future, you can answer it as well. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 11. In the square grid below, X is a rectangle, Y is a right angle triangle, and Z is a equilateral triangle. Arrange X, Y, and Z from the smallest to the largest. So from here, we just need to find out what is the area, right? Area from the smallest area to the largest area. So we can just calculate accordingly. So first let's go to X. Okay, let's zoom into X over here. So what's the length and breadth of X? Okay, so I think it's pretty straightforward. This is 4 square, and then this is 2 square. Okay, so in this case over here, area of X is equal to 4 times 2, which is 8. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So we have Y. So Y over here, let me duplicate this. It's also 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We have 4. And what about the height? The height is 2 in this case over here, right? So where's the base and height? These are the base and height because it's a right angle triangle from the question itself. So 4 and 2, so area of Y is equal to half times 4 times 2, which is in this case just half times 8 equal to 4 shaded squares, something like this. Okay, and then last one we have area of Z, Z, what floats your boat, you know? Okay, so for Z, what is the base area? 4 as well. And what is the height? 2. Okay, and where is the base and height? So if I were to draw the line over here, okay, that's what you see over here. And there you go. So this is the base and height as what you see from a normal triangle. And see, we know the base and height. That means it's actually literally the same as y. Oops. Me. Okay, so the thing is, it's not 2 actually, it's 3. Okay, my bad on this. So 1, 2, 3 squares. So this is actually 3. So instead of half times 8, this is half times 12, which is 6 in this case over here. Okay, so for what do you call this? For Y, in this case, it's not 3. It is let's say it's around 3.5, okay, or 3.1. Let's put 3.1. Okay, basically Z over here is taller than Y. Okay, so 1, 2, 4, and then 3.1 ish. Okay, so with that said, oh yeah, yeah, with that said, we can just put area of Y equal to half times 3.1. All right, so this will be like 12.4 or something like that. And then half times 12.4 is 6.2. So from here, I think we can roughly know which one is the biggest and which one is the smallest. So biggest here is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is X. So X is the from smallest to largest, sorry. So the largest is X at the end and the smallest is Y in this case. So YZX. So it's option number 3 or C in this case over here. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 12. After a discount of 25%, the price of a concert ticket is $60. Senior citizens are given a further discount of $12. What is the total percentage discount given to senior citizens for the ticket? So the thing is that this one you have to be very, very careful because you always want to find the original price. Okay. So the original price is 100%. So you always want to get the original price to get a total percentage. So percentage is tricky if you don't do it properly. Okay. So we know that after discount, right? So after discount percentage, discount percentage, right? It will become 100 minus 25, which is equal to 75%. Okay, so percentage, I forgot the A over here. Okay, so we get the 75%, and that means 75%, yeah, 75% is equal to, after 25 discount, the price of concert is $60. So we know this is $60. Okay. So if you know like 75% is actually also the same as 3/4. Okay, 3/4 of the price. Okay. So if you were to just divide it by 3, so this will be 25%, or 1/4 of the price. Okay, in this case, then this will then become 60 divided by 3, $20. Okay, and then from here you can get a full price, which is 100%, which is equal to 4 out of 4 price, and this will then be 4 times 20, which is $80. Okay, so why do we want to get the original price? Is because we want to get the total percentage. So we want to get the total price, original price, okay, and then get the discounted price. Okay, so now we know the 100% is $80. The next thing is that the senior citizens are given a further discount of $12. So senior price is equal to, okay, in this case, 60 minus 12, which is equal to 38, sorry, $48. Okay, so do a workings, but it is $48. So now we know that in this case, actually, do you need okay, so senior is $48. So that means the senior dollar discount is equal to 80, which is the original price, minus the senior price, which is 48. And this will give us $32 in this case. Okay, so now we know the senior discount price. Now we can finally get the percentage discount given. So the total percentage discount for senior is equal to 32 divided by 80 times 100. Okay, and we can cancel the zeros, right? Zeros over here, zero over here, so it's 32 divided by 8 times 10. So 32 divided by 8 is 4, and then you times 10. This will give us 40%. That's what I see over here. There you go. So the answer is 40%, which is option B or option number 2. All right, that's it. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 13. A shop had a number of computers for sale. After selling 32 of them in the morning and 5/8 of the remainder in the afternoon, it was left with one quarter of the computers. How many computers were sold? Okay, so this is what we call the remainder concept. So if you want to learn the remainder concept, you can go to easy1.sg/blog, and we actually explain on this concept. Okay, so if you know this concept, then this should be not say walk in the park, but pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some things here. Okay, so we have over here some computers. Okay, so computers. So I'm going to use this thing called branching method. So same thing, I will show it inside the blog itself. So we have computers, and then I want to make this a little bit more bleh, like this. Okay, so let me just zoom this in. So computers, we sold how many? 32 computers. That's what you see over here. So this is what we selling in the morning. Okay, sold in morning. Okay, and then we also have the remainder. So how I know this is a remainder concept is because usually there is the word remainder. But the thing is, we don't know what is the amount that is sold in the afternoon. Sorry, remainder. What's left basically. Okay. So the remainder is what you see over here. So, but the thing is, we know that 5/8 of the remainder is sold in the afternoon. Okay, so we're going to draw again another branch like what you see over here, and we will say 5/8. Right, so 5/8 of the remainder is we sold in the afternoon. Noon. That's what you see over here. All right. So and then we are left with one quarter. Okay, so we are left with one quarter, right? Oops, oops, oops. Oh no, where is it? Okay, so I've added a new branch and it says here one of quarter of total computers left. So from here, we can actually, wait, let me see if I can detach this for a while. So this one quarter of total computers left is in a way the same as what is the, I would say, remainder from this 5/8. So 5/8, okay, is left in this case over here. Sorry, 3/8. Okay, 3/8 is left. So when you do this kind of branching method, you have to know that when you see this remainder that branches off, this will then be a multiply. Okay, it will be like a simple multiply. That's what you see over here, right? So let me put this up. So you need to multiply this, right? X this essentially. So what that means is basically remainder, okay, multiply 3/8 is equal to one quarter, right? Because one quarter represents the total computers. So with that said, then how do we get the remainder? So what we can do is we can just divide, right? So remainder is equal to one quarter divided by 3/8. Okay, so fraction over fraction. So one quarter divide becomes multiply, and then 3/8 will be 8 out of 3. Okay, if we were to just do this normally, this will then just be 8 over 12, right? And this will then become 2 over 3. Okay, so this is not the remainder, but oh yeah, so this is the remainder, correct? So the remainder over here will then be 2/3. Okay. Since now we know the remainder is 2/3, then that means the morning or what we saw in the morning will then be equal to 1 minus 2 out of 3, and this will be 1 out of 3. So that means 1/3 of total is equal to 32 computers. So 3 out of 3 of the total, or basically the total is 32 times 3, this will give us 96. Right. So now we know the total is 96 from this. The last part is we want to know how many were sold altogether. So the thing is we know that we are left with quarter of the computers, or 1 out of 4. So if you are left with 1/4 of total, that means the total sold is equal to 1 minus 1/4, and this will become 3/4. So since you know the total sold is 3/4, and we also know the total is 96, so total so this should be fractions, right? Total sold fraction. Okay, so total sold will then be equal to 3/4 times 96, which is basically the same as, right, over here, 96 divided by 4 times 3. So if I were to just put this over here, 96 divided by 4, so it's like 48/24 times 3, this will give us 72. So that's the answer, 72. Right. So this is pretty much how it looks like. If you don't know how to use the remainder concept, then you'll probably struggle in this question. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 14. In the figure, A, B, C, and PQR are identical right angled triangles. The total area of the shaded parts is 96 centimeters square. Find the area of the unshaded part. So these are identical triangles as what we see over here, right? So the thing is that we actually can slowly figure this out. So since we know that they are two of the different sides, that means, let me just draw a line over here. So we know that this is 10 centimeters. I'm going to put it red so it's easier to see. So we know this is 10 centimeters. So that means this is also 10 centimeters. Okay, because these are two identical triangles. If this is 10 centimeters, right? So I'm going to put here as 10 centimeters. Then we also know that this is also 15 centimeters. Okay, so this 15 centimeters over here, let me make this into blue. Yes, okay, very good. So this one is 15 centimeters. That's what we see over here. So technically I'll put here 10, then I'll put here 15. Okay, this one is right. Okay, so we know that these are identical as what we see over here, right? 15 and then 10. So the total area of the shaded parts is 96 centimeter square. So the thing is, once you overlapped, what do you call this, a shape over here, essentially you're just overlapping the same shape in these two of the identical triangles. So what this means is that, okay, we just first get the area of the identical right angle triangle first. Okay, so we will have area of right angled triangles, which is equal to half times 10 times 15. Okay, and this will give us so it's basically 5 times 15. Okay, so 5 times 15, which is 75. That's what we see over here, right? Okay, so now we know the area of the right angle. So let's go over here and let's find out this overlap shape concept. So imagine there are two triangles and we know that they are both 75 centimeters square or the area is 75. But the thing is, once we overlapped, like as what you see over here, then we actually create another, I would say, triangle in the middle, right? So this triangle, this, let me just remove this little. So we actually created a new overlapped triangle as what you see over here. Okay, something like this. Okay, let me zoom this in. So what this means is that the overlap shape over here, if we know the total area of the shaded parts, that means if I were to put this as white color, we actually overlapped one extra part as well, as what you see over here. So the so you could see that if I were to split the two triangles again, we have the unshaded part, right? And then after that, if we were to overlap it, right, you could see that we are hiding one, but it actually gives us an excess of the unshaded part. That's what you see over here. Okay. So that means this total area is actually equal to 150, right? The total area of this whole shape is 150, including the excess. But the thing is, we know the total area of the shaded parts, which is 96. So if you have the total 150, so let me just put this, right, 150 over here, right? And then we minus off this shaded part, we are actually left with this two unshaded part or overlapped part as what we see over here. So therefore, what we need to do in this case is, if I were to just put this up, right, over here, so we can just put here 150, right? So the two overlapped parts, is this the correct word? Overlap. Okay, two overlap parts is equal to 150 minus 96. Okay, or 75 times. Okay, so 75 times 2, right? So two triangle area is equal to 75 plus 75 or 75 times 2. Doesn't matter, right? It just gives us 150. So two overlap parts will actually gives 150 minus 96, right? The shaded parts. And this will give us 150 minus 96 is 150. So 44. Okay, 44 centimeter square, right? Yes. 44 or 42? Oh, sorry, it's not 44, it's 54. Okay, so better calculate properly. Okay, so we know that the two overlap parts, which is this shaded area, is 54. So now to get the unshaded part, which is just this whole part or this thing, we can just get rid of 1. And then what will we do is we will then have 54 divided by 2. So one overlap part over here, okay, is, give me the arrow. All right, it's equal to 54 divided by 2, which is equal to 27. There you go. So it's not two overlap parts, it's one overlap part, or the unshaded overlap part, or in this case, unshaded area. Okay, there you go. So that's the answer to this question. Okay, hopefully what I explained is makes kind of sense, but if you are still not sure, you can just remember this part where if you know the shaded parts, then what you can do is just minus off the two areas and then you just divide it by 2, the formula will work as well. All right, that's it for this question. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 15. Find the value of 10.3 minus 0.99. So in this case over here, what we can do is we can put 10.3 minus 0.99. But if you think about it, 0.99, right? Okay, 0. Oops, 0.99 is equal to 1.00 minus 0.01, right? Okay, so I think it's fairly straightforward. So we actually can substitute this equation to 0.99. So how we substitute it is we make sure that we have a brackets because this is what we are. Oops, substituting as well, right? So in this case over here, okay, copy this, right, and then paste it over here. So now the thing is that if you have done this kind of equation, when you have a minus inside a bracket, that's also a minus, this minus becomes a plus. So that means this whole thing, right, will be equal to 10.3 minus 1.00 plus 0.01. Okay, and then you can now minus it simply. So 10.3 minus 1.0 or just 1, it's as simple as 9.3 plus 0.01, which is equal to 9.31. So now we can just double check, right? Always double check. So 9.31, oops, just put here 9.31, okay, plus 0.99, does it gives us 10.3. So in a way, 9.01 plus 0 plus this is actually just equal to 9.01 plus 0.30 plus 0.99. Okay, and then after that you can just swap the places around. Okay, so this 9.0 is like this, and then plus oops plus 0.99 is like this, and then 0.30 is like this. Okay, and then now we can just add them up, so this will then become 10.00 and then plus 0.30, and this will become 10.30 or 3 in this case, which in this case is correct. All right, so there you go. So the answer to this is 9.31. Okay, question 16. Find the value of 2 minus 2/3 minus 3/4. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it out for you. So essentially, it will look something like this. So first thing first is we always want to get the lowest common multiple of the denominators. Okay, denominators, which in this case is 3 and 4. Okay, which is 12, right? So from here, we actually can just make everything into denominators of 12. So for 2 over here, this would then become, is it 12 of 12 or 24 out of 12? Like this. Okay. So about 2/3. So if I were to just multiply this by 12, I mean, not 12, right? By just the other number. So times 4 times 4. And what would this become? Okay. So this will then become 8 out of 12. Okay. So we have 8 out of 12. And then we minus. So in this case over here, we multiply this by 3. Right? Not 4, 3. Okay. So this will be 3 as well. And this will then become 9 out of 12. Okay, so from here, we can just minus accordingly, right? So it's basically just 24 minus 8 minus 9. So what would that become? So it's 24 minus 17. This will give us 7 out of 12. That's it. There you go. So that's the answer. So the answer is 7 out of 12. All right. Okay, question 17. In the figure below, find angle Y. Okay, so I think this is pretty straightforward. So a full circle angle is equal to 360. So angle Y is equal to 360, yeah, minus 140 minus 30. Okay, so 360 minus 140 is 220 minus 30, which is 190. In this case, degrees over here. There you go. So that's the answer to this question. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, so the answer to this is 190 degrees. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 18. Express 2 out of 25 as a decimal. So 2 out of 25, if you want to convert it into a decimal, but we don't have a calculator, what we can do is to make the denominator into 10, 100, or 1000, right? So in this case, 2 out of 25, what can we make the denominator into, right? Out of 100. So in this case over here, if we were to make it 100, what do we have to do? We have to, in a way, we have to multiply this by 4. So if you have done a lot of this, you probably know, right? So if I were to just put brackets, so 25 times 4. So that means we're going to do the same with the um, 2 as well. Okay. So for this, we will then have, wait, in this case, this would then be 2 times 24. Okay. And this will equal to 8 out of 100. And 8 out of 100 in decimal form will be just be 8 divided by 100, and that is equal to 0.08. There you go. So remember, if you were to have division by either tens, 100, or 1000, then you should understand that the decimal point. So since 100 has two zeros, we move 8 by 2 spaces to the right, and it will look something like this. Okay. So the answer to this question is 0.08. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 19. The figure below is made up of identical triangles. Four of them are shaded. Shade two more triangles so that XY is the line of symmetry for the figure. Okay, so in this case over here, we need to shade the two other triangles. So we just want to make sure for this one, we always want to have a mirror, right? So how we know that is if we find a shaded, then that means this is also shaded. That's what we see over here. Okay, right. So we just shade this one. Okay, and then after that, we also have this, which is correct. And lastly, we have this triangle over here. So that means we just shade this part over here like this. Okay. Okay. So apologies. So that's it. So this should be the answer to this question. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. Question 20. Name two lines that are parallel to each other. Okay. So over here, in order for us to know which lines are parallel, you can actually use a ruler. So I'm just going to use my handy dandy ruler. That's what you see over here. Okay. So this ruler, right? Let me just rotate it if I can, like this, right? So you need to measure what is parallel to each other. So using a ruler, what you can do is, or two rulers, I mean. So you can use your right angle square set as well to figure out which one is parallel. So the ruler will either go to two sides of the figure as what you see over here. Okay, so not super accurate, but somewhere here. And then after that, what you need to do is you need to slide this. So for example, this is PT. So it's PT parallel to PS. Okay, so if I were to slide the ruler, not really. Okay, it's not parallel. But if I were to slide to QR for PT, then it's also not parallel. So that is not, so PT is not parallel to any of those. Let's move to PS. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this. All right. So rotate this to PS like this, right? So over here, and then the other ruler, so rotate accordingly to PS as what you see over here. Okay, so this is the rough parallel line. Okay, so make sure to really put it in as what you see over here, like this. Okay, so now when we were to move the ruler, you could see that PS is parallel to QR. So these two lines are parallel. Great. Okay, so we can write here PS is parallel to QR. Okay, and then after that, the next thing is we need to go to the other, I would say, side of this um, figure, right? So what we can do is we can rotate these rulers, okay, to the other side. That's what we see over here. Okay, like this. So the last line we want to check if they are parallel is TR with PQ. Okay, so for this, we just put the ruler like so, and then have it on the line so that it can slide through. So let's slide through, and this is not parallel because you see PQ is not touching the ruler. So the answer to this is PS is parallel to QR. So we see over here. Okay, there you go. All right, next question, question 22. Name two lines that are perpendicular to each other. Same thing, have the ruler, right? So grab a ruler. I have a ruler over here, and then use the edge of the ruler because the edge of the ruler is a rectangle and it's 90 degrees. So you just want to check using the edge of the ruler to line to any lines and then see whether it's perpendicular. In this case, it's not, right? So if I were to make this red, okay, invincible. So QR is not perpendicular. And then if you were to rotate QR, Q, so PQR is not perpendicular. Then is PQPS perpendicular? Nope. Is S or RSP perpendicular? Nope. So let's try TPQ. TPQ. Okay, so TPQ is not perpendicular, but if you were to put PTS, it is perpendicular. So in this case over here, this is perpendicular. I'm going to put in green. So which lines are perpendicular? The answer is PT is perpendicular to TR. Okay, so there you go. So PT is perpendicular. So let's see angle. I can find perpendicular sine. All right, PT is perpendicular to TR. Okay, there you go. So that's the answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 22. Okay, question 22. Measure and write down the length DE to the nearest 0.1 centimeters. So I have a ruler over here. I've already aligned it to the line DE. So pretty straightforward. Align the ruler to the line DE and then just look very closely, right? So it goes above 7, and then you just need to measure which one it is at. Okay, so this is, in a sense, we already hit the midway mark between 7 and 8. And then after that, we just got 7.5, 7.6, and 7 and 7.8. So you can draw a line as well, right? A big tip is to draw a line. Okay, I'm just going to draw a line like this so it's easier to see. And then we go back over here, make sure this aligns it here as well, right? So draw a notch so it's easy to see. So it's roughly around 7.8 lah. Okay, in this case over here. So the answer is 7.8. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 23. Measure and write down the size of FDE. Okay, so let me grab my protractor. Okay, so I have my protractor over here, a little bit large. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually flip your paper. So I'm going to flip this image, right? Something like this, right? So FDE is like this over here. So what we are looking for is this angle, right? So first thing first is you want to draw a little notch in the middle as what you see over here, like this, so that you can align the protractor easily. So with that, we can just put the protractor and then just slowly align as what you see over here. Okay, like as what you see. Okay, so from here, then you can, so once it's like in the middle of the notch as what you see over here, so this notch is like in the middle. That's what you see over here, right? Then after that, you can just calculate. So over here, we can just calculate over here. And this is 110. So 114. Sorry, 113 degrees. That's what we see over here. So there you go. 613 degrees. Okay, pretty straightforward. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 24. Use all the digits 6, 5 to 8 to form the smallest multiple of 5. Okay, so to get a multiple of 5, so if you have used to doing multiples of 5, so multiple of 5 numbers have either 5 or 0 as the last digit. So example 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So you could see there is this last number, either 0 or 5. So in this case, we should have 5 as the last digit. Okay, now since it will be something, comma, something, right? Or no need comma lah, something, 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 and then 5. So we are left with 6, 2, and 8. So to form the smallest number, we need to have the smallest number first, smallest to largest. So in this case, it will then be equal to 2, what do you call it? 2, 6, and 8. Okay. So therefore, the answer is 2, 6, 8, and 5. There you go. So that's the answer, 2, 6, 8, 5. All right. Oops. That's the answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question 25. Use all the digits 6, 5 to 8 to form the number closest to 6,000, right? So how do you form a number that's closest to 6,000? So what we need to do is there's two numbers you can do. Either we have start with 6, and then after that we can form the number that's closest to 6,000, so it can be 2, right? So same thing, either form the biggest number starting with 5, so it should be 5 some 5 something something something, or smallest number starting with 6, right? So 6 something, oops, 6, and then something something something, right? So biggest number starting with 5 is basically from largest to smallest digits, which in this case 5. The largest is 8, 8, and then the next one is 6, and then the next one is 2. Okay, so this is the opposite for the smallest number starting with 6. Okay, this would then be smallest to largest, right? To largest digits. So this would then be 6, and then 2, 5, 8. Okay, so from here, how do we know which one is bigger? So we need to minus. Okay, so for this, for difference, for difference for 5862, okay, is equal to 6000 minus 5862. So you should do your workings, right, to check this up. So this should be 138 over here. Okay, so that's the difference for 5862. What about the difference for so okay, I need to write down also closest number to 6000 should have the smallest difference. That's what we see over here. So we have 138, which is very promising. So what about 6258? I think you can see lah, right? So 6258, okay, in this case minus 6000. This will 6000, and this will give us 258. So the answer to this question, what is the number closer to 6000? Is 5862 in this case over here. There you go. So that's the answer. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 26. Three friends shared the cost of 60 mangoes in the ratio 1:2:2. What was the cost for the smallest share? Okay, so in this case over here, the friends shared the cost of 60 mangoes. So we know that $10 is for 15 mangoes. So we can write down 15 mangoes, right? So let's leave the answer back. Okay, 15 mangoes is equal to $10. So what about 60 mangoes? Right, 60 mangoes is 60 divided by 15 times 10, which is basically $40. Okay, so now we know that is the total cost. Then the next thing is, what is it like that? Okay, so next thing is we know that the total, so we have the ratio, right? So total units is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 2 equal to 5. Okay, 5. So 5 units is equal to $40. Okay, sorry, 40. Then 1 unit is equal to, right, 40 divided by 5, which is $8. So what's the smallest share? So smallest share in units is equal to $8. There you go. So the answer is $8. All right, that's it. Question 27. A student used a calculator to divide a 4-digit number by a 1-digit number. For the 1-digit number, he made a mistake by pressing 4 instead of 5. He obtained the incorrect answer of 260. What should be the correct answer? Okay, so in this case over here, the number, so he has a 4-digit number, okay, and then it divide by a 1-digit number. So in this case, the 4-digit number is unknown, right? So we don't know the 4-digit number, but this was divided by the number 4. Okay, he made a mistake by pressing 4 instead of 5. So the answer is 4, like this. Okay, and the 4-digit number divided by 4 is 260. So from here, can we get the 4-digit number? So in this case, 4-digit number, okay, divided by 4 is 260. So that means the 4-digit number is equal to 4 times 260, right? So in this case, usually I'll go to a number that's very familiar to me, which is 4 times bracket 250 plus 10. Okay, so that means this will be 4 times 250 plus 4 times 10. This will be 1000 plus 40, and this will become 1040 in this case. So double check your calculation for this, so at least you know this is correct. Okay, so but if you want to use my way, which I think is a little bit simpler, then yeah, go ahead. So now we know that the four digit number is 1040. So what should be the correct answer? So the correct answer is basically 1040 then divided by 5. Okay, which is equal to the 1000 plus 40, and then you divide it by 5. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm trying to optimize everything. Okay, so I don't have to like draw my workings out. Okay, but in this case it will be 1000 divided by 5 plus 40 divided by 5, and this will become, so 1000 divided by 5 is 200, plus 40 divided by 5 is 8, and the answer is 208. Okay, there you go. So the correct answer should be 208. Alrighty. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 28. Ismail has some cookies. If he gives each of his friends 5 cookies, there is no remainder. If he gives each of them 3 cookies instead, he will have 36 left. How many cookies does Ismail have? All right. So for this is what we call shortage and excess concept. So if you want to find out more, right, we actually have a blog or a way for you to learn. So easy1.sg/blog, and then you can find this concept to learn more about this. Okay, so I'm going to share with you on how will this look like. Okay, so how do I know it's a shortage and excess kind of question? So usually you'll see that in this question over here, it says if he gives each of his friend 5 cookies. So that means this person give to a group of people, whether there is a remainder, there is more, there what is left, or he needs in this case he needs 5 more, something like that. So if you find this kind of question, then it's a shortage and excess kind of question, and it usually have two situations, right? So in this case, there's one situation where he give 5 cookies to each friend, he has no remainder. Second situation, he gives 3 cookies to each of his friend, and he has 36 left. So how does this look like? So let's write down the situation one, which is basically this. If he gives each of his friend 5 cookies. So in a shortage and excess kind of concept question, shortage and excess concept kind of question. So what you need to do is you need to let uh, one unit be number of friends. In this case over here. Okay, so for this, if he gives each of his friends 5 cookies, there is no remainder. So that means situation one number of cookies is equal to, so number of friends times 5 cookies each. This will be 5 units, right? So now let's do the other situation. Okay, so let's move to situation number 2. So situation number 2 is different. So it says here if he gives each of them 3 cookies. So I just copy this and paste it over here. He will have 36 left. So for situation 2, number of cookies will be is 1 unit times 3, but he has left 36. So that means there is an excess of 36. Right, there you go. So this will then become 3 units plus 36. Okay. So the thing is that situation number 1 and situation number 2 is the same. So situation 1 plus situation 1 is equal to situation number 2. So what that means is we can just put here 5 units is equal to 3 units plus 36. Okay, and then we can solve this, right? So over here, if we minus 3 units from each side, so minus 3 units, and then minus 3 units. Okay, and from here, this will get 2 units equal to 36, and 1 unit is equal to 36 divided by 2, which is 18. So now we know the number of friends he has is 18. More than me, sad life. number of friends is equal to 18, right? So with that, how many cookies does Ismail have? So total cookies. So you can either do 5 units. So total cookies will be essentially 5 times 18, right? Equal to 5 times 18 is equal to 90, right? Or you can double check by having the total cookies, but using this equation 3 units plus 36, right? In this case, which is equal to 3 times 18 plus 36. So 3 times 18 is 54 plus 36, which is also equal to 90, which is correct. There you go. So the answer to this is Ismail has 90 cookies in total. Right, let's move on to the next question. Question 29. Ming drew 3 circles to form a figure. The areas of the circles were in the ratio of 1 is to 4 is to 16. She then shaded some of the parts of the figures as shown. What fraction of the figure was shaded? Okay, so this one, if you have seen this kind of question before, then you should be able to answer it. It's a little bit tricky, but not very, very hard. Okay, so in this case over here, we know that the big circle, so the biggest circle has an area, bigger circle area is 16 units, right? Then the middle circle area is 4 units. And the smallest circle area is equal to 1 unit. So for this, right, what fraction of the figure was shaded? You might be thinking, oh, we just add all together. Sorry, 16 units is the biggest one. And then we just have minus 4 units. It should be 12 out of, what do you call this? 16, right? You might be thinking, oh, the answer should be the biggest since 16 units, right? And then so shaded is just uh, biggest shaded is equal to biggest minus middle, which is equal to 12 units. Okay, so that's not actually the case, because what we need to do is we have the smallest circle as well, right? So if I were to break this down really quickly, so we have 16 units as the biggest one, and then let's copy paste this as well. So the smallest one over here, no smallest one, the second smallest one, okay, we know that this is how many units? 4 units. Okay, so from here, it makes sense that the shaded will be equal to 16 minus 4, which is 12 units, right? Makes sense. But the thing is, we have an additional one more, which is the smallest one. Okay, so what will this look like then? Like this. Okay, so we have a small one, and this is 1 unit. Little 1 unit. That's what I see over here. Okay, 1 unit. Oh, why is it not here? Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy this, paste this. Okay, because it looks like this. So in this case, what should we do with this 1 unit over here? So we actually need to plus the 1 unit because there's an additional shaded, right? So that means 12 plus 1, which is equal to 13. There you go, right? So this is what's the shaded part. That's what we see over here. Okay, so biggest minus middle plus smallest. Smallest, and this is equal to, let me just put like this, right? Okay, so it's basically, I'm just gonna copy this down. That's what you see over here. All right, so with that said, now we can get the answer. So the fraction for shaded will be equal to shaded then over total. So the total is basically 13 divided by 16. There you go. So that's the answer, 13 by 16. So careless mistake is people put just 12 over 16. Okay, right? Or maybe they add all the units up for the total, but it's actually just 16. All right. So yeah, that's it for this question. And that's the final question. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want more of this kind of video, subscribe down below and comment down what other things you want me to show you next. See you in the next one. Bye bye.